Hello, welcome to our post session, and we are presenting you our current study in planning for adaptation, specific to climate adaptation. So we are examining the integration of hazard mitigation and recovery planning. So the driving force or the motivation of this study is that we have observed like the increased demand for repetitive mitigation work, also the recovery year after year. So we are proposing the three research questions here to look at specifically to what extent our local planning in mitigation and recovery policies are integrated. Also to look at the extent to which that both planning processes are integrated. Finally, we are going to look for the local factors that explain the variations of integrated planning practices. So the theoretical backgrounds of our study is heavily based on the traditional planning literature, which looks at the four major components of climate risk reduction, including the land use planning, hazard mitigation planning, disaster recovery and redevelopment planning, and also the climate change adaptation or action planning. So we are specifically looking at the two planning processes, including the hazard mitigation and long-term recovery as shown in figure 1. So we are looking for patterns of the networks of their agencies working on the efforts. Also looking at the local planning documents as a plan networks to evaluate local commitment and efforts. So the 10 case counties we're looking at here, we have constructed a comparative case study. So the 4 cases in North Carolina, 3 county cases in Georgia, and 3 counties in Florida are listed in figure number 2. And the rationale behind selecting these cases are based on their similarities in disaster exposure, their variation planning context, their variation in agency networks. So we have conducted the content analysis on their planning documents and looked through all their plans to see the networks. And also we are conducting the surveys to look for further insights or details of their planning networks. Next, we will conduct in-depth interviews to look for further details to complete the networks. So preliminary findings of their local planning networks included, as shown, like we have demonstrated here, 2 county examples, the Palm Beach County in Florida, and also the Greene County in Georgia. So we can tell the plan networks are fairly complete, meaning that the local plans are connected to each other. However, in Greene County, Georgia, we see a disjoint of their recovery planning committee on the left. So COEM, that's the county emergency managers, and the consultant number 2, they form a small committee to work on the recovery planning, but they're not essentially connected to the bigger group, which is the mitigation planning and land use planning. Also, the land use planning committee and the mitigation planning committee are connected by solely the zoning. We see zoning department are sharing efforts in both planning processes, in land use, also in mitigation, but not in the recovery processes. Overall, we see we didn't observe the existence of climate change adaptation planning for the region. So that's where our efforts are heading to, is to look at how these adaptation efforts are implemented into their planning networks or planning efforts at the local level. Also, we are going to evaluate the key actors like the zoning departments on behalf of, in terms of how their efforts are helping form the overall planning networks for better planning policy making. So that's a brief introduction of our project evaluating the planning integration for both planning practices. Thanks for listening, and we welcome your comments and insights, and we look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.